those butterflies that do, they're always there because, it's a huge festival and people have expectations always. But also, it's also a chance to surprise people that don't know you yet. And we had like these huge green testicles. Well, I call them testicles. They were trees actually, but everybody has a different opinion about what they actually look like. Yeah, it was really special, to be honest. And it may be one of the most special things I've done.
Next year, the career of the band Within Temptation will have spanned 3 decades. Now, typically, a rock band over a long period of time will become more calm and subdued with their sound. Not so with Within Temptation. Their last album, Bleed Out, in fact, seemed like the heaviest music they've ever done. They've recently released a single which was quite different and very interesting for different reasons. And I'm delighted to have the chance to have a chat with the singer of Within Temptation about the band, where they find themselves in 2025. So Sharon, welcome. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure. At the time of our conversation, in a couple of weeks, you're about to headline the second stage of Download Festival, which is a significant moment in itself. But I'm wondering, having performed on the size of stages you have for many years, at this stage, are there any butterflies in anticipation of a set like that? Or is it kind of second nature at this stage?
Well, it's depending on how far I am in the festival season, like this one is quite early already, but I've done then, or by then I already have had a few festivals, and I always need to get into it a little bit. So it's those butterflies that do, they're always there because, it's a huge festival and people have expectations always. But also, it's also a chance to surprise people that don't know you yet. And so it's a lot of things that can happen during playing on the festival because they come for the audience comes not just for you but for a lot of bands, and we're playing on the second stage, as you said, but headlining it, and so that's quite a responsibility. But I'm up for it. I'm looking forward to it. And but yeah, so yeah, no, but we've had a long history with Download, and we had. One of our best shows there, but also a lot of stress once we had like a technical failure at one of the first times we played there. We played in the tent and nothing was working. Our equipment was dead and we were left with only 20 minutes of playing, and it was crazy. It was like Robert trying to play guitar and trying to tell us what you play this and you say that, trying to, to see what was eventually still working, what we could cope with. So, anything can happen at a festival and you have to be prepared for everything. And that's because there's so many bands playing and you have only a short time to change. And so, but it's, I'm looking forward to Download because it's always been a pleasure. Although we only played at that time, which was, I think, like almost 17 years ago. The first time we played there, or 20 years ago, I'm not sure. Anyway, but we only played 20 minutes and people still appreciated it because, they could see us, being anxious to make this end in a good way, and flying all over the place, trying to be at every place at the same time to get everybody sounding the right way in the same time. And we managed it, and people said, didn't hear any difference. Well, we knew that certain things were still not working.
Of course.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing is that the people in the band, the musicians, when things go wrong, but the audience don't always know. It's I would find if I come off stage, someone says like, "Hey, that was great," and I go, "No, I missed that one snare hit at the start of that song, and it threw me off." They're like, they have no idea. Doesn't matter. You just go, "Thanks."
No, exactly.
Appreciate it.
No, yeah. We'll never mention it again.
Exactly. No, and also I think audiences, particularly these days, are a bit more informed. They understand technical difficulties, and what they then enjoy is the efforts to try and overcome those and the rest. And at this stage, you've probably been through all kinds of moments like that.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen a lot. There's happened a lot. People just. I remember one time we played on a showcase in Spain that Robert, he forgot there was no railing on the staircase, so he just walked off the stairs, just fell down like 2.5 meters or maybe 3 meters down with his guitar, and we were like. A moment of silence, like, oh my God, did he break anything? And then we started laughing, actually, which was completely stupid, but we were so nervous, like, and he said, no, I'm okay. My God. And then we could go on stage, but we couldn't keep it together anymore because we were like constantly laughing because happy for him that, he didn't break anything. At the same time, it's like, okay, we can actually play now, and all the tension was gone. Ice was broken.
Great. Yeah, it's a tricky thing, especially if what you strive to put together in a performance is a very slick and seamless sort of show. Then those moments can be a little
Yeah,
bit more surprising. I
professional.
mean,
Yeah,
exactly, the
exactly.
professional sheen. I mean, people would potentially think that, well, if you're in a band for long enough, then you'll get the opportunities to do something like headline a stage like that. But I think not so, because you have to be able to deliver a good enough performance that it pays off, especially going after some notable bands, such as this year you're going after Opeth and Miles Kennedy. These are like seriously formidable artists, but it's because you've established your ability to perform at a high level until this point. Do you have a process for putting together a show that is not just musically as well executed as it can be, but also something of a visual spectacle that you care about?
Well, we've always been known for also our visual shows, what we put down visually. And the thing is, we've always tried to find like on stage the same kind of image that feels connected to our music in a way. We're storytellers, to our opinion. And in the beginning, it was more epic kind of storytelling about World War II and other kind of, sometimes also fantasy kind of stuff, and certain books we had read, and we were inspired by that. Braveheart was an inspiration as well. So many things could inspire us, and that you could see that reflected in our show, meaning the images we used on the screen or the things we had built on stage. And every time there's something different, and it's not about doing every time something bigger and bigger and better, but more like you want to make the music part and the visual part connect 100%. Like people get it, what you're talking about, or they get into a certain vibe or a certain mood, and it needs to make each other stronger. What you see visually as because of course we could have been there just in our jeans and just a backdrop, which is cool also, because if it's just about the music, it's also just about music, and that's fine too. But we've always loved other bands like Iron Maiden and Marillion and Marilyn Manson. They always put up a big show, and very visually very epic and in many different ways, and we were always inspired by those bands who did something extra, and always wanted to be one of those bands, to be visually also known for our visual show.
Yes, I think you certainly are, for sure. That is the reputation you have. And I was wondering, it's one thing to put together an epic stage show for, let's say, repeatable arenas, but when it comes to a festival, are there other complications? Like, well, we like that backdrop idea, but we can't fit it on this stage. Or have you ever had to compromise on things because of a certain setup and what it takes?
Yes, of course. But nowadays we're like a little bit prepared that not every stage is the same size, and we have a good a stage manager nowadays. In the past we didn't, and then we did run into trouble. Like for instance, we had like these huge green testicles. Well, I call them testicles. They were trees actually, but everybody has a different opinion about what they actually look like. It was at the time of Mother Earth, our album, and we had these green plants or trees on stage, and the plugs didn't work because they had to go. It was like inflatables. And so we had to put the plug in, and then it would go up with air. But then the Belgian plugs are different from the Dutch plugs, and our stage manager forgot about that. So they never went up. So we had to, walk over our stage gear, over these plants. We were just flat on the floor, and we were tripping over it, and crazy stuff.
All
Yeah,
part of the
there's
fun.
a bit of spinal tap we all have, it's like.
For sure. I was watching one of your live performances on YouTube at some point, and you're one of your most popular songs in Faster. I have to imagine. I mean, by the way, incredible song, absolute tune. I would imagine at this point you must have to play that at every stage you perform at, otherwise the crowd will riot, and you'd be forgiven for going, am I really going to perform this song again? But in those performances, you seem to thoroughly enjoy it regardless, in a very natural and authentic way. Is there something about the audience in front of you that makes that performance feel viscerally energetic and interesting every time? Or how do you approach that song on a repeat performance?
Well, that's actually a song I actually do enjoy playing over and over. But there are songs that I think like, oh my God, we have to play them. But after 30 years, it's getting a bit boring sometimes. But the thing is that I also get the energy from the audience. So when they, rise up, oh, this song is coming, then I feel that energy and I get enthusiastic because of that. And that triggers me like to do that extra bit to do enjoy it. And, I can feel their energy and their positivity and their happiness when they heard a certain song where they have their special memories too. So people are always connecting songs to memories. And for that reason, I enjoy playing them still.
Yeah. You've sort of hinted at this, but it doesn't have to be a song that you're like, oh, we're going to really play this again. But is there a particular song that is either quite challenging for what vocal acrobatics you need to do for it, whereas before it in the set you think, okay, I need to center myself, I need to get ready for this one in particular?
Yeah, there's two songs that I find quite difficult. It's In the Middle of the Night, Iron, and it's Shed My Skin, because they're completely, constantly high, and even in the middle of the night, I even, I go even higher, halfway. It transposes a bit, and it's like I really need to have my vocal cords really warmed up, and I really need to have practice it if I can sing it, because sometimes when I have a little bit of a flu, it can easily go wrong. So I can lose my voice. Not that I will sing a wrong note, but it's more like that I will damage my voice. And then the next song, I won't be able to sing anything. So that's the thing that I have to take in consideration while making a set list. And a lot of times people say, "Why didn't you play that song? Because we love In the Middle of the Night." Well, then that's that's sometimes the reason why we can't play certain heavy songs, because they're not just musically heavy, but they're for me vocally also quite challenging sometimes.
Sure. Yeah, you're as talented as you absolutely are. Like you're not a robot. Like it's a biological instrument you have, and
Yeah,
it requires care.
it's a muscle. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, notice when you're performing as well, there are moments when you will like put your hand towards your diaphragm. Are those moments where you think I really need very much control in order to sustain this next bit I have to do, or is that part of your kind of practiced way of like? Is this a classically trained sort of technique you're focusing in on in those moments?
I have no training at all. So everything I do is what I learned myself,
Wow.
actually. And the thing is, when I do that, it's more like to I don't know, it's something I do without thinking about. I think it's more to stay in contact with myself, to ground myself or something. Sometimes I lose myself a little bit too much in the music, emotionally, or maybe sometimes, um, yeah, I don't know. It's more that I want to be grounded or something, that I stay in the moment and don't lose myself too much, because then you can drift off to, it's not like we can do a lot of solos in our music because we're playing with click track. And but if I lose myself, I might just make a mistake. So it's also to ground myself a bit, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Otherwise, you're like, oh, I'm a quarter of the way through the chorus and I'm not singing the line.
I'm going to sing it again. It happened to me
Yeah.
once. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, fun. Now, your most recent single, "Sing Like a Siren," was it, I overuse this word a little bit, I think, but it's the most appropriate word is ethereal in its beauty. There's something enchanting about that sound, and you did that with Ukrainian artist Jerry Hale. How much of that was a kind of collaboration between yourself and them as a composer and artist, or did a lot of that come from them? Because it's got this folk injection, and there's a symphonic aspect to it, but you're no stranger to that because of Within Temptation. How did that song come to be between yourselves?
Well, we met in Kiev and we only had a very short time together. She suggested to write a song together in Kiev, but I had the festival and I had to practice with the choir and the orchestra at the time, and I only had a few days to prepare myself. And so we ended up only talking for a half hour, and I said,
Wow.
we have to do this through the internet because you're in the Ukraine and all over the place with Euro Song Festival. She was, asked for all kinds of shows everywhere. So she was quite busy as well, and so was I. So I said, we have to send each other ideas over the internet. And she came up with a very, a very cool idea with where already the motive was there of the Ukrainian, folk, that there is the Slavic folk. And I've always loved that. I've always wanted to write a song like that. So when she brought that up, I did the second part, she did the biggest part in the beginning and the chorus, and I did the after part, so the second verse and the ending. And but you know, it just was magic actually, because sometimes you have to work, you know, sometimes months to work, make a song work, and with us it was just like in a few weeks, pum 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 pum, sending this, sending this, sending this, and then it was there. So, and do agree that the Ukrainian DNA is all over it. It's completely in it, but it's also what we wanted, because the documentary is about what we made. It's the soundtrack of the documentary and that we have made, and it's about our trip to Ukraine and visiting Kiev while being there for a festival, but also meeting fans and other musicians, and to see how they deal with war during this time, and how music is a part of that. So we felt like this song could be really, you know, it really needed to have that DNA of the Ukrainian language, the emotions and sound. So, and it all has it, and that's thanks to Jerry Hill.
Oh, it was fabulous. It felt very grounded and earthy in that way, and certainly it's a poignant song given the mini documentary you made recently, "The Invisible Force," which I watched recently, and I mean, it was very powerful. I think as a sort of personal survival technique, I think I subconsciously try and disconnect emotionally from the troubles of the world that I feel like I have no potential control over or impact on. But I found that documentary to be quite moving, in particular that special concert that you performed at in Ukraine. And this is someone who's generally mostly trying to disconnect from these things. It's really difficult to process. I can only imagine what that was like for yourself in the moment. It felt like, as a viewer, there was this kind of tension and yet hope. It was a massive moment when you're performing at that concert. What was that like for you in the moment, having built up to that, met all those people, and then be performing that and seeing how moving the crowd was finding that performance as well?
Well, before I went on stage, it was like a lot of things went through my mind, because there were a lot of people involved and everybody had been so resilient. Because the thing is that a week before the festival, it should have been taking place a week earlier, but then the children's hospital got bombed, and that was the reason that they postponed the festival for a week. And everybody at the festival said, we're going to do it. You know, it doesn't matter what we have. Of course, they're all Ukrainian bands. And but still, you know, everybody had their agenda of what they were going to do next week, maybe play somewhere else. And everybody said, no, we're going to do this festival. No matter what, we're going to do this. And I found that so inspirational. And I came across that kind of resilience many times when I was there, because I went there 2 times. One time when I was there for a video, and now this time in July I went there for the festival. And the thing is that I remember there was a Grand Café bombed in Kiev. I think it was called the Crown Café. And I remember somebody telling me about that and said, like, it was very beautiful because it got bombed and it was a very popular place, and people the next day just took out their coffee machine, their chairs, everything they needed to have their coffee still on the rubble. They just took a little bit of the rubble away and still had their coffee. Like, we're not going to be chased away of the place where we meet, where we are together, and where we can find hope and strength with each other, you know. And the same thing with the festival, that everybody said, we're going to do this a week later, and everybody said yes. There was nobody backing off, and that was, I've never seen that. I've never seen that anywhere, and I've been a lot of places in the world, and of course every situation is different, but still I found it very inspiring. And so for me, going on stage, it was like I could see everybody was nervous because we had very short rehearsal time. The thing was that I actually was supposed to get a different orchestra and on stage with me, but they never appeared. I don't know what happened to them, or, you know, I was never told what happened to them also. There was just a stand-in orchestra, and they only had like 24 hours, something like that, to rehearse, you know, my songs. And I had Maria on my side, the piano player, and she was trying to teach them all the everything they needed to know to make it happen. And so she worked overnight with, there was disturbance of electricity, and she still had to, try to make this work. And the day that we were rehearsing on stage. It was the first time I really rehearsed with them. And then we went to a small concert, like a concert hall, and we practiced over there. And that was the only time that we had together to practice. So I was a bit nervous, like, oh my God, are we going to get this together? But, Maria was on top of it, and, she had prepped everybody, like, completely, sending them the chorus and all the chords and everything, the music paper and everything, days before I came. But they had practiced only by themselves. So this was the first time when we were actually, having the sound check. Was the first time we actually played together and sang together. So that was completely crazy. But because normally I've worked with orchestras before, but that takes sometimes weeks, sometimes even months to get, completely tuned into each other. And this was just, it was really, really good. High quality orchestra, high quality choir. And I was just, I was also a bit nervous because it's also a place, the festival, like if they attack people where people get together, like with bombing and it was also maybe, it could have been a target. And I was like, the moment I stood on the stage, I forgot about all of that because we felt all like in tune with each other in the same frequency. And it was really special, to be honest. And it may be one of the most special things I've done so far, and maybe because it's in time of war and that you can see those faces, and they're all, people were just not like shouting or jumping but just really listening to the music and really into it, and sometimes crying, sometimes just holding each other. It was had a lot of impact on me.
I can absolutely imagine it'd be a sort of group defiance for the sake of life, and like, we're going to do this anyway. It reminded me there a little bit of, because there were the bombings that happened in London. This is like 7/7, a long, long time ago. And the next day, everyone's back at the bus stops, back in the tube. Like, we're going to carry on. Bring it, Like, there's something amazing about that.
Yeah, that gives chills. Yeah, in a positive way.
And then, I know it's so cliche, but some things are cliche because they're proven again and again to be true. So I think it's okay. But there's something about the power of music. I mean, obviously, I love music. My channel, my life, everything about it is geared towards music and enjoyment of that.
Yeah.
But when there's difficulties and challenges in the world, and you might not have like the ear of the politicians to try and make the active change there is something widespread of impact you can make with music that kind of translates ideas in a special way. Lyrics can hit in a way through melody that doesn't happen through just words alone. So I wonder what you've taken from that experience in particular, from the kind of the weight of what your music can do if wielded for good.
I think that music unites, where everybody has their own story of what they've been through. They can all be there, and feel the same thing. I think music can be, what I heard from people from Kiev, that when we played there, it's like, they appreciate everything you do. It's like, it's the feeling that they're not alone, and that was something that I found very special also, because I don't think it's very special what we did, because there's so many people going to Kiev doing reports about what's happening there. A lot of people doing special things, there are many people doing something special. And but they if only words, if you would only express that you're on their side, thinking of them, the small things even matter, because it's just a feeling that you're not alone, because that they're a country like us. They have a president elected, in a democratic way, and it's a sovereign country. It's they're trying to be with Europe, and they have the same norms and values as we do. And the thing is, I can relate easily to them because they're very much alike. It's like, so I think music, I'm happy that music can do something, because that's the closest what I can do. I find it very difficult. I could do other things, you can do donation stuff, but making music is the essence of what I do and what I love most. And if that resonates with someone who needs that comfort, music can be comforting.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think you've absolutely nailed that concept. I've not really had it spelled out in the way that you have, but it totally makes sense. And that's I think one of my favorite things about music, and especially the metal music that I enjoy, is it connects people. There's something like it's the
Yeah.
closest I get to like a religious experience is if I'm in a crowd and everyone's singing the same lyric at the same time. We're
Yeah,
shouting,
totally. Yeah,
it's like we are
totally.
one.
Yeah.
We're all okay
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
Like, yes, I feel this anger sometimes too. And it's like,
Yeah.
actually, we're all right.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
beautiful
Yeah, we're
thing.
collective.
Yeah. No, we
In a
need that,
way.
I think.
No, I think we need it in certain times. I remember that I can remember that this show that I saw on television of Queen at the time when I was a kid, and everybody was saying "We Will Rock You," and the whole stadium just, was like just moving. And I felt that was one of the most beautiful concerts I never saw live, but saw on television. Everybody was singing the same thing, and still I think that was one of the greatest concerts ever. That's the magic of music.
Yes,
How
I
it
think that might
unites.
have been like Wembley Stadium or something. I think I
Yeah,
remember
Wembley
that. And there's
Stadium, exactly.
yeah,
A long
and
way
and
back.
you get
But
the opportunity to have those moments yourself. You'll be on stage at a like for example, a Download Festival in that second stage, and you'll see if everyone's clapping along, you'll see the ripple of the wave because of the sound wave goes.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
this. It's an amazing
It's like
vantage point.
the sea, exactly.
Yeah.
People are moving.
Oh, it's a
Yeah,
beautiful thing.
that is magical. Yeah, I totally agree. But you've been there apparently because you know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah,
seen it
it's
yourself, I think. Yeah.
yes. It's like a drug. You just want more of it. It's an
Yeah, yeah,
amazing thing.
exactly.
I was wondering, in terms of the songwriting process for yourselves, I mean, that most recent album, Bleed Out, being so heavy, and you mentioned in some interview that I saw that the concept and the topic kind of led to it having that sort of heavier sound because of that.
Yeah.
Is that something that generally happens for your albums or your songs, that a concept and mood will then influence the tone of the music you create? Or is that album a particularly kind of massive moment where you're like, that this has to be this way for this particular tone?
Well, I think they go hand in hand in a way because in the beginning you don't even realize that that's the reason why it's happening. You're just processing what you've been talking to in the morning, and then all of a sudden it just creeps into your music. It just takes over your music, and without you even realizing it. But then after a while, you see a red line through all those songs. And you say, okay, this is pretty much about this and this and this, because we talked about that and we talked about that in the news, and and I'm always, especially then, a lot of things were happening with the elections in America, and you had, of course, Russia invading the Ukraine. So it was a lot of things happening at the same time, and you saw the world changing, the way politicians were talking, and like everybody was awake at the same time, knowing that, especially for certain countries where you saw like this huge battle between the left and the right parties in political parties in countries, you saw a lot of things happening. It was like everybody was seeing what Trump was doing, and taking that in their own country to like an experience, like they were trying the same thing, like how to influence politics and stuff like that. And we were like, oh my God, the whole world's on fire right now. What's happening? The world that we knew, that we grew up in, where we thought the Second World War would never, something similar like that would ever happen again. Now Russia was doing this. It was like, yeah, mind blowing in a bad way. And also how politicians are behaving nowadays, like they should be our inspiration, and they should be the ones we look up to and get hope, and sometimes also can hold on to something. And that's not the case anymore. It's more like, I think, the people that we have to look up in are more individuals in society that do something that you think, oh my God, that's really beautiful that this person is doing it. But it's not the politicians anymore that I used to look up to. Of course, there's always debatable if you can ever look up to a politician, because it's, they also always have their own agenda. But all those things were going through our minds while we were writing these songs about Don't Pray For Me, which is about religion, and also about women's rights, and also Bleed Out, of course, about Iran, the women's rights there, and how that generation is really fighting for their freedom. And yeah, I found it very, this has been, of course, going on for many years already, but it all came to an explosion and into the news again, and we were like almost, you were aware of it again, the battles that are being fought at the moment in this world, in our world, and we need to process that, I guess. Like I hear a lot of musicians say the same thing, that they to deal with life, they process it and it ends up in their music, and that's what happened with our latest album. I don't think we have ever made a heavier album than the latest album. Although people will always say, it's so commercial. Yeah, right. I don't know which album they're comparing it to, but yeah, never mind.
No, it's great stuff. Yeah, something's gone off in my head there. I think you're dead right. There's something far more. It's not even kind of country isolationist. It's also like individualistic. Everything is now. You were rarely celebrating.
Yeah.
The only teams we're celebrating these days are like World Cup football teams. That's kind of it. Otherwise, we're not really celebrating groups, which is tricky. I wonder if, because your band has dealt in the past lyrically and thematically with kind of war and battles and things in that nature.
Yeah.
Do you think if you hadn't had that in this time you would have gone, right now we're going to go start writing about the world and what it's in and have more kind of political leanings, or is that more seamless because of the sort of tone of your band thus far? It's kind of easier to go, actually, we're going to anchor it in this stuff now.
Well, the thing is that we've always been writing about freedom and engaged in with politics, but we were never that open about it. More, we talked about it in metaphors. Like The Cerebral Fools is very much about the politics at that time in the Netherlands, where a lot of things were happening for the first time that concerned us. So I'm reminded of the Second World War in a way. And so we were talking a lot in metaphors. And nowadays we felt like, okay, we're getting older and older, but, metaphors don't work. And if we really want to do something, then maybe we should have that conversation of what kind of world do we want to live. So, the music becomes heavier because it's more direct, but also because our lyrics are very clear what we're saying and what our stand is. And we want to talk about politics, although we still want people to have a good time as well. So it's like trying to dose it in, not to overthrow them with, politics constantly, but just, here and there, put in a seed in their head and maybe to make them, rethink what their point of view is and what kind of world they want to live in.
Yes, I get the impression that you'd want them to walk away from your show thinking like, that was a great show. I loved the music. It was really entertaining, but there's also something in their mind of, I'm going to reflect on some of those things in the next few days and weeks and take something with me.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I hope always. But, in the past, and I was never that hopeful that people would listen to our lyrics. And I think nowadays, because it's something that we're more open about, I have the idea that people are more checking it out. So that's a good thing.
Yes. And then when it comes to melodies, I mean, having written the quantity of original music you have at this stage, how do you still maintain the excitement or the itch to find that next brilliant melody that you love? Or is that always a consistently interesting part of music that you love?
That's that's the cherry on the cake, as long as you believe you haven't written your best song yet, then it's challenging to find that one, or thinking that you found it, or it's the challenge of writing something that you are excited about yourself, and then it's a good song most of the time. And at least that's what I think, that's our guiding line. It's like, as long as I think it's an amazing song, then I think the audience will get it. I can bring it across because I'm enthusiastic about it, not just me, but the whole band, of course. So it's, but it's the idea of we haven't written our best stuff yet. So I know, that's, you have to have that. It keeps a drive if you have that
makes sense.
Feeling.
Yeah. Otherwise, why are we like, oh, well, it's not going to be as good? But yeah, why not? It's the melodies, they're all out there. You can find something new.
Yeah, There's a lot of new technology nowadays. We can tune the guitar so much lower. There's so much more I can do with my vocals. It's so much more interesting than when I
Yeah.
started, actually. Um, because I was always limited because of the type of voice that I have. So now I have the idea I can sing any kind of song because, the guitars can just go as low as I want to.
Mm.
So there's more possibilities for us as a band as well to maybe write that song that we thought we could never write, you know?
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm sure you will have
Or is it
talked it in.
fake?
Who knows? I'm sure you will have talked to death to some degree in other interviews about like who inspired you back in the day. But I'm wondering, who have you discovered in the music universe in the last few years that have injected you with inspiration? Like, oh, that's fascinating what they're doing. How can I incorporate some of that into what I'm doing?
Well, it's more the metalcore scene was inspirational because of course you have Sleep Token that everybody adores at the moment and will adore for a long time after this. But it's more like that they did show, and also the bands before them that got to the sound that they eventually have is that you can do so much more. So you can do strange stuff that people don't expect. That's something that I've been missing in music, that the unexpected happening, like to be surprised, because always like verse, chorus, blah blah, or
Hmm.
now you hear something strange like, oh, this song can be way longer, like in the past that we can make songs of 8 minutes, not always good, but meaning like it can be if you keep them interesting. And so it's finding to keep it interesting. And I think yeah, Sleep Token is one of those bands that show that you can make music, long songs and change them constantly and do weird stuff, which is keeps people awake. It's like, oh my God, this is really, when you hear it over and over again, it's like really never. It doesn't bore you. Sometimes when I hear a certain song too many times, I got bored of it.
Of course.
But with certain, yeah, it's nice to have music that isn't boring. And so you
Yeah.
have to change. You have to change the structures maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, as part of what I do, I listen to music and I review it and I analyze it, try and figure out, listen, I think this is good. Why? What is, because there's a technicality to music. What is making this be so satisfying? And I haven't pinned it down yet. It's this like jelly I
Okay,
can't grab.
you don't have. You don't.
But,
Okay.
but I think
Okay.
what
The
gets
Holy
close
Grail.
to this is this the balance between it needs enough things in it that's surprising you don't expect, but also some satisfying payoffs. So you could have a
Yeah,
song where you
totally.
go like,
Yeah,
actually,
yeah,
we're going to do
yeah,
a chorus. No, we're not. We're going to do a longer pre-chorus. Okay, that's interesting. But then when
yeah,
the next build-up
yeah,
happens and they land a chorus, you're like, ah, that's it. Is that?
yeah. Finally, that's there. Yes, exactly. I know what you mean. You shouldn't get lost in the structure, but it should be logical in a way, but still surprising. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, well
that's
said.
fair. When you started this band with Robert, did you, in the first moments of writing and rehearsing, have in your mind the scale of what the band could become almost 30 years later? Or does this feel somewhat surreal at the level you got? Like, did you think, yeah, we'll do this, and I'm sure we'll play arenas, we're going to be this huge band? What was that first kind of start of the band like compared to where you've ended up?
Well, the crazy thing is that we've only played one time in a venue where there were just three people watching the show. One was sitting at the bar, but it was in the
Yeah, yeah.
beginning of our career. But after that, it really took off quite quickly because we had a record company that promoted us like the best way ever. Because of that, we had, after the first three shows, we were playing in the Milky Way already, and it was sold out. And Milky Way is, of course, like in Amsterdam. It's a very beautiful venue. And the fourth show we ever did, or the fifth show, we played on Daimler Open Air in the tent, 10,000 people watching.
God.
And so we were like, okay, after that we never had a not out sold out show or nearly sold out show, It's like, so, but of course we still had a long way to go because I didn't even know what ear monitors were, and I didn't know how the wedges were working. So, most of the time I was off key because I couldn't hear myself, and, we didn't know nothing at the beginning. So we really we were thrown in front of the lines without the right knowledge to perform as a band in the beginning, the first year that we performed. But then we learned quite fast. We had label mates, and they took us on tour, and they taught us everything we needed to know. And so that was the way we started. And so we were quite spoiled from the beginning on that we had, constantly sold out shows, although small venues, but then the smaller venues became a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And then from the Netherlands, we went to Europe, and from Europe, we went to the rest of the world. So it was, we were not famous overnight or known overnight, how you want to call it. But, and I think that was a good thing because we gradually could get used to the amount of people that got to know us. And at a certain point, with Mother Earth, we had the breakthrough, and that was kind of a shock to us because people in the streets, got cuckoo because they ran into you and chasing you in the supermarket because they wanted to have an autograph, stuff like that that we never thought that would happen to us, and we weren't prepared for that. But after that, after Mother Earth, we really had to prove ourselves again with another album, and that was The Silent Force, and that became a good quite a success in Europe, but still everything went step by step. It was not like overnight like this, and I really I'm happy that we weren't a band like that. That we had to work really hard for it where we are now today, but at the same time, it all went gradually, and I think that was the best way for us, not losing our minds and going berserk. I don't know. Some people just lose themselves sometimes when they get too well known. If it goes too fast for them. We had the time to grow into it and grow up.
Yeah, that's the thing I worry about the most, frankly, because I'm always in support of new bands, new artists. I want them to grow and do well because they'll give us new ideas, new creativity, amazing new music. But in the modern era, it's less likely they're going to play a lot of gigs. There aren't so many independent venues, so you can really cut your teeth and get used to how the monitors work and the rest. So they might get very well known online, suddenly be in front of 10,000 people and go, I don't know how to do this. That's
exactly.
the worry.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Eventually they will, of course, they have to. But it would be nice if people would realize that you're actually booking the band, like maybe to prepare them for what they're gonna expect. It's a totally different ball game than you're online constantly doing your thing and then having to perform for a real audience. It's a different, different ball game.
The other difficulty as well, I think, because of the nature of social media, every single concert you play, every moment of it will be captured by someone. So like there's more nervousness to not use whatever tuning devices you can, whatever production techniques you can. So like it's got to sound perfect every time. That pressure is unhelpful.
That's high, to be honest. Yeah, and I must say that when I went off the wedges and into in-ear monitors, that was a rough ride for me because I didn't know how to. Well, I didn't get it right very quickly. So I had like 1.5 years that I got really bad reviews from people, like when we playing on concert, like she can't sing, she's out of tune, but I was constantly out of tune. So something was wrong also, because otherwise you would be sometimes off tune, but I was constantly off tune, so I couldn't hear it. And finally I got a different monitor engineer, and he stayed with me since 2005, and I'm so happy that I have him. I cherish him. Don't tell him, otherwise he will ask a raise. But no, he knows I adore him, and I worship him, because he is the guy that makes me sound the way I sound eventually nowadays, which is way better than in the early 2000s, because I didn't know how to cope how to get my sound right on my in-ears. And now I do, and now I know what I need to have and how it needs to sound for me to perform in the way that people can hear me at the last few years. So that was it was also that it got that worse that I even got scared to get on stage, like having stage fright and really, like not wanting to go on stage at a certain point, because I just couldn't hear myself, and I couldn't make it known to my the team around me, like I don't know what I'm missing, It's like, but eventually this guy, he just because the other person just had another job in between, he said, can you fill in my job for one time? And yeah, of course. And he just did it in one take. I just said, what did you do different? And he said, why, wasn't it good? I said, it was amazing. You can never leave again. I'm not gonna let you go. I want it every time. Yeah, you're mine.
My goodness. Yeah, I've not
Yeah,
used
yeah.
in ears. I've not been a musician on stage without like in the more recent times. But I have to imagine it'd be like if you're singing and you plug your ears, it's you'd hear your voice differently within your skull. Is that kind of part of what's
Yeah.
odd about it? Do you think? Right.
Um, Well, when I used to sing with earplugs, plugs, the when
Hmm.
you're drilling board, I don't know how to say it in English.
Oh yeah,
When you
yeah,
make a hole in the board, yeah, okay,
yeah.
drilling, okay.
Drilling.
Anyway, and they have these plugs, those ugly yellow plugs to put in your hair to protect them, and that's what I sang with when I was on wedges, and I could always hear my own voice resonating. But then with the in-ears, there was a balance between drums, click track, guitar, how low, how hard should it
Right.
be, and I was singing too loud and I couldn't pitch somehow. I didn't get the right information to sing on in a way, and so that was quite difficult. Either for at least I couldn't handle it. Maybe it was my own doing that I sang the way I did, but I couldn't handle the combination of the balance that I got, and I didn't know how to change it. And this guy just made it for me. He said, "Okay." His name is Benny, and Benny made the monitor settings for me in one thing, and it was like, "This is it. This is what I have. This is what I want to have every time. I'll be fine. I can manage with this." And later I figured out what it was, how the balances work, and those kind of things. Back then I didn't know.
Well, I
So
would
it's
doubt that the fault lies with yourself because if the difference is the technology aspect has been altered and then things are better, that is an external force. But it's great that that's working out now. Now, in terms of what's coming up for yourself, I mean, I loved our little chat about trying to find that new melody and the next best song. Is there anything in the musical landscape that you have not delved into yet? You think one day I want to go try in that genre or that world or that new collaboration with someone I've not thought of before?
well, collaborations are always for us, and that's a very boring answer, but for us it's always like finding you know a good song, and then you think you're missing something, then asking certain people that you think you can't do yourself, and because then it's the best collaboration because they really add something to the music and people can see and hear it. And so we never think of someone in mind when we write a song. And but there's many people on my list. Most of them are dead. But there's also a lot of living people that I admire a lot. Like for instance, Nothing But Thieves singer. I really think he is like
Oh
next
yeah.
level of everything. I'm such a huge fan of his voice, and I love their music as well because for me, because a lot of times people ask me, what kind of metal bands do you like? Well, I like a lot of metal bands, but I also like a lot of other bands outside of the metal scene, and especially because I think a good band or a good song is a good song, and I can enjoy reggae to classical to metal. Of course, I like heavy music most, but yeah, Nothing But Thieves is one of my favorite bands.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. My channel is all rock music because it's got to be focused
Yeah.
somehow. But I was in ska bands. I played reggae. I love all kinds of music. Yeah, I've
Really?
only
Oh,
just
wow, cool.
recently. Yeah, I was in a hip hop band for many years, which is surprising as an
Oh my
Irishman. But
God.
yeah,
That's
um,
cool.
yeah, it's great fun
You
because
learn
I
from
just
yeah, but you learn
absolutely.
from every kind of music style also. The rhythms are different, the
Yeah,
way they use the guitar or instruments in general.
yep.
So that's cool.
And I often find that when I'm talking to artists that are writing interesting music, it's because their influences are not just rock bands. It is other things they're bringing
No,
in.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, once I talked to, do you know Type and Negative? Of course you do, I guess.
Yes, I
Type and
know that.
Negative, American band. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I met Peter Steele at Dynamo Festival. Was one of the time that I said we played for 10,000 people for the first time, in a tent, our fourth show, fifth show. And I met him backstage, and he told me that his biggest inspiration was actually the Beatles. And I was really like, oh my God, really? It's like,
How did you get
those
there
kind of
from the
things you don't.
Beatles?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, but that was interesting. I had the most beautiful conversation with him about music, and it also opened my eyes. Like, I don't have to, it doesn't matter what your inspirations are, especially I think they're even better that are outside of the metal because you can integrate it in your own way and add that as an extra inspiration source into metal, which is something new again. I think always that the best kinds of music are made because, not talking about my own music, but in general, if you take elements from other scenes, because then it becomes something special again. And if you combine it with the thing you're doing, you're adding something unique again, I think. So that's
Absolutely. And I think that is a wonderful, poignant note to leave people with in this conversation. Thank you so much for your time. It's been fascinating to hear about the writing process behind what you're doing and what the band's doing, and the importance of the things you're doing also in Ukraine is kind of really amazing. So well done for all of that. Good luck with your headline set at Download Festival coming up soon and everything else we're doing this year. Thank you very much again for your time.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me. Until next time.
Well, what a wonderful conversation that was with Sharon Denadel from Within Temptation. So much to take away from the considered answers that she had for those questions. I'll make sure to put a link in the description to their mini documentary that we talked about in that, so you do check that one out. Also, I'll put links to their various social media platforms you can find Within Temptation on, so you can keep up to date with their tours and music in future. If you've enjoyed this, make sure you subscribe if you're on YouTube, or leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so that more people can discover this conversation as well. Hopefully you'll return for another one of these interviews very soon.